What was that going to look like?
What I thought in my mind was me drinking so much that my body just and my organ just eventually shut down. Yes.
What's your name?
My name is Chad Bowers.
And how long have you been at the Ricky Davis house?
I've been at the Ricky Davis house since January of 2023. And I've been in the program of recovery resources since December of 2021.
Yeah, so a long time.
Been here a minute.
Yeah. Is this your first attempt at recovery?
Yes, it is.
So yep. One and done so far.
I hope. Fingers crossed.
Yeah. What led you to, what was your last week of addiction like?
My last week of addiction was rough. It was, honestly, a lot of it's a blur. I had become homeless through, a series of my own actions, mostly connected to alcohol. And I was living out of my car. That last week I was living with a family member, allowed me to stay at their home. And my alcoholism was affecting him as well. And I needed to leave. He wanted to help me, but he also knew that if I stayed there any longer, it would risk his living situation as well. So I knew that I had a week left, so I got rip-roaring drunk. My intention, and this is where it gets a little dark, my intention was to drink myself to death. I had every intention in the world to do that.
What was that going to look like?
What I thought in my mind was me drinking so much that my body and my organ just eventually shut down. And that's what I thought was going to happen. That didn't happen. I drank myself. I don't remember a lot of that last week. I know it all culminated on a Friday where my family member was finally like, you have to go today. I was still drunk as can be. I get in my car and I drive away. I do remember that day pretty clearly. I was in my vehicle. I went to a gas station. My plan was to drive. I had some money in my pocket. I was going to go to a hotel. I was going to have one last hurrah, order a pizza, drink as much as I could, and then I was going to kill myself. I had every intention in the world of slitting my wrist and ending my life that night or within the next couple of days after that. So after leaving that particular gas station, I was pulled over by the police. And not for driving crazy, but because my tag light was out. And, the police officer, who ended up being very kind to me, his whole intention was just to be like, hey, your tag light's out, and walk away. And, as soon as I rolled down my window, he could smell the alcohol, and he could smell the urine. I'd urinated on myself at some point during that week. I'd been wearing the same clothes all week long. So what proceeded from there was my first experience in getting arrested, and subsequently going to Sullivan County Jail, where I got to spend 47 days there. So,
wow.
Yeah.
So what type of drinker were you?
At the end, I was a binge drinker. I would just get as blackout drunk as I could possibly get. My drinking, it got bad. I never had a real issue with it ever, most of my life, until about 2018. I'd gone through some trauma. I didn't know how to handle it in a healthy way like a lot of us don't. I started finding that drinking more and more helped me deal with that. So 2018, I started drinking a little more. Got a little worse. COVID happened, the pandemic happened, got a whole lot worse. And then I was also dealing with some health problems at the time as well, which at the time I didn't realize exactly what was going on. So in March of 2021, I ended up losing my job. I started drinking every single day. I had a lot of money saved up. I was drinking every single day. I was drinking to black out. I was just drinking to not remember things. I didn't want to be there, and I didn't have the constitution or the fortitude to kill myself. So I was just going to drink myself into oblivion and hope that the money lasted long enough for me to get myself straight. I didn't want to be that. Every day I was like, I'm not going to do this today. And I would have days where I would not drink. I'd have weeks where I wouldn't drink. But I would always go back to it. I'd always go back to it. So
you didn't know anything about, I guess at that time, I'm guessing, about recovery, let alone recovery resources.
I didn't. I didn't have a clue, and I wish that I did. I don't know if I'd like to think that I would have been smart enough to have reached out to some place like Recovery Resources, or I ended up going through Magnolia Ridge or a place like that. I don't know if I would have. Honestly, I was still in that mindset that I didn't have a problem and I could handle it myself. my dad, he was an alcoholic growing up, and he had ended up quitting alcohol cold turkey, and he didn't do the rehab, he didn't go to meetings, he didn't do any of that stuff. He just quit on his own. And I was like, well, if my dad can do it, I can do it. So I just kept expecting that to happen, and it never came. It never came at all. But I didn't have a clue about rehab. I didn't have the first idea. I've never heard of recovery resources. I didn't hear about an Oxford House until I was in jail, and I had no clue what that was. So no, I didn't. I've watched that show Intervention on A&E quite a few times. I'd watch it and be like, well, at least my life's not that bad. And then at the end, my life was that bad. I was absolutely that person that I was watching on TV.
It's like boiling a frog, isn't it?
Yeah, you don't know how hot it is because it's such a slow burn.
Yeah.
And I had my friends and family. I'm very blessed. I have a really good support system outside of the recovery community. All these people that were there for me are still there for me. I didn't really burn any bridges, thank goodness. And the ones I did burn, I've been able to rebuild through over the last couple of years. So,
how did you? How to articulate this question? What was your experience in finding out what recovery was about like?
It was eye-opening. What little I did know about recovery was, the things like I mentioned, that show Intervention, watching TV shows where, people are at an AA meeting in a dimly lit room with blinking fluorescent lights and stale donuts and coffee to the side. That's what I thought recovery was. And there's some meetings like that. I've been to a meeting like that or two, but I didn't know to the extent of it what it was exactly. I didn't know that there were places like Magnolia Ridge and Recovery Resources, and Families Free is another organization that's helped me quite a bit. So my experience is I've learned that there's a lot in this area to help us. I've also learned that there's not always been a lot in this area to help us. Like a lot of these things, like Recovery Resources and some other places, have just kind of sprung up in the last few years. So a few years ago, there wasn't as many sources to help people. So
that's true. Love cannot withstand a vacuum, I find.
No.
It has to get filled up somehow. You've been here for a lengthier period of time. So what do you?
Yes.
For you, what do you think? This may take you a moment, but what do you think has been the most profound realization you've had, or maybe?
I've had a lot. One, I don't know it all. That's been a very, pardon the pun, sobering thing for me. I was at a point in my life before alcohol took a hold of me that I kind of thought I had things figured out. Like, my life was good. Before the alcohol, I had a good life. I had a good job. I had good friends. I always had, sweet people around me, a nice car. I had all that. And then when all that was taken away, I had to step back and reevaluate myself and realize that I don't know everything like I thought I did. And another thing is I'm not in control of things. I want to be in control. I love to be in control of things. I think most of us do.
It's safer. It seems like it could be.
Yeah, it seems like it is. It makes you feel comfortable. Change is rough. Change is a very difficult thing, but it's needed. I've also realized that, I have a lot of character defects and flaws. I thought I was an all right person. And then when, I go through the steps and the fourth step and go through and lots and lots of therapy, probably more therapy than most people have been through, I realized that, I've got a lot of flaws. And even sober, I still have those flaws. And it's something I have to work on every single day. And that's, I went through a period of time when I was at a job and I ended up losing that job, and it was because of my character defects. I'm stone cold sober, that was just a year ago. It wasn't that long ago, and that's been the most profound thing for me, is realizing that I still have a lot of work to do. Even if I don't put a substance in my body, I still have a lot of work to do on myself.
I hear that it's like a common thread, and I say it myself, but the phrase is like, there's work to be done, or I have work to do, or there's still so much of myself that needs work done on. How do you perceptualize yourself doing that work today?
It's an everyday kind of thing, and it's in the little things that we do every single day, from being aware of what you're doing. Like I do a nightly inventory almost every night, almost every night. I do it quite often, and I'm in a group chat with a bunch of the guys here in the house, and we all hold each other accountable. But doing that helps me look at the things. Like if I've had a whole week where I've had the same things happen, then that's probably something I need to work on, and that happens a lot. But I try to fix those things. Might be too much of a permanent word, but I try to work on those things in everything that I do, whether it's with my friendships, whether it's with my relationships, whether it's just seeing a guy maybe here in the house that's having a bad day, walking up to him and be like, "Hey, are you okay?" I try to be as empathetic and compassionate as possible to everyone around me. And some days I can't. Some days it's rough. Some days I don't want to talk to a soul in the house, and that's part of sober living. Sober living, it's a hard life. It's a difficult life. It's worth it, but there's a lot of things that come along with it as well. But I try to always be there for the people in the house. I try to, and even in like my work life, I don't have a whole lot of family left, but I've got a little bit of family left. Even with those, I try to make sure that I try to be a principled person in all my affairs.
It sounds like you could substitute the word work with like deliberate intention almost.
Yeah.
Like principles or morals or ethics in that way too. Yeah. What are you most excited for about your life today?
Future.
How so?
I have a new job that I'm starting Monday, and hopefully, I had a great job a year ago, making tons of money. I'd actually already started looking to move out of Recovery Resources, and then I ended up losing that job. And then I've had more health issues, and that's another big part of my story is the health issues I've had, over the last few years, but especially since I've been here in the program. But I'm kind of in a mindset now where I've never been a goal-oriented person. Like I've never been someone to sit down and make goals, and I'll make goals, but I won't follow the goals. But I think I'm in a place now where that's the thing that I need to do. If I sit down and I make a goal, either by myself or with the guys here in the house, or with my sponsor, or with Recovery Resources, or whatever, I think I'm at a point now in my sobriety and here in the program, and just in my life in general, that I can actually follow through with those goals to reach. Things aren't just going to come to me out of the blue. Praying's great. I truly believe my higher power answers my prayers and listens to me, but at the same time, action is required as well. And I think that the things that are before me, hopefully the things that are before me are going to be great. Like I've kind of come up with my own, like, I don't know, 3 to 6 month plan on how I hope things will happen. Sometimes things don't go the way you want them to. I've had goals and plans for the last 2.5 years that did not go the way that I wanted them to. Sometimes it was because of my own stupidity. Sometimes it was just things happened. Sometimes it was the universe telling me it wasn't the right time to do this or that. Sometimes it was my health. Learning to be patient and learning to accept where, we hear this a lot and we say this a lot, you have to accept people where they are in life. I have to accept where I am in life. And that's a difficult thing to do because I want to be so much further down the road and with my successes and my sobriety and, with those material things like, have a car and wealth and money and all that stuff. I want to be so much further down the road than I am right now. And that's a difficult thing for me sometimes is to accept where I am with my own life.
It is, for myself included. Do you care if we check back up with you in 3 to 6 months?
I would love for you to check back up in 3 to 6 months.
Okay.
I mean, there's a real chance I'll probably still be sitting right here.
It's okay. Wherever you are.
Wherever I am, yeah.
Thank you for doing this.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you for asking me.